Okay, so I'm going to go over a few things really fast. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about me. I'm going to go over what I've done, and then the 5 things I think build great cultures. So let's get started. So a bit about me. So I'm married, have a little boy. I've got 1 wife, 1 kid, and 2 cats. I always try to clarify that I only have 1 wife, 1 child, 2 cats. My son thinks that he's a DJ, so we have this really cool tractor set up, and he's been throwing down some beats lately, and it's actually pretty impressive. He's much better than me, but I won't tell him that because he's got a fairly big ego. I love fashion. I really do. At one point in time, I was going to become a fashion designer, but I don't like couture at all. I think that when you have things that is just art and that people can't wear, that makes it pretty but useless, and that makes it pretty useless, and I'm just not a big fan of that. I like things to be 100% useful. I'm a massive music fan. I'm in a band. I go to around 20, 25 shows a year, and that's why my ears still ring. But what I love most about music in general is that I thrive to actually build a product one day that 100,000 people cram themselves into Wembley for just to kind of see me use. And if you guys aren't familiar, this is Foo about 3 years ago, and this was an insane show. I'm an interior design fanatic, and I like interiors more than exteriors. Exterior is the way it looks on the outside, doesn't tell you anything about the inside, and I like things to be from the inside out. So even when I'm helping friends design houses, we start with the living room, the living space. What do you want to do inside this house? We start from that point forward, and we go out, not the outside in. I think a lot of people do that, and people do that with product design too. How does it look before how can you use it? And I just think that that's a waste of everybody's time. And I am a car guy. Anyone in the room that knows me knows this is true. But recently, I've convinced my wife that I am a automotive design aficionado. It feels a little bit better when I'm trying to buy absurd cars, but I think that she's either bought it or tolerated it so far. Here's the most important thing. I love technology. I love tech. I mean, it's the #1 thing that inspires me. And there's very many reasons why, but one of them is that I just think I'm always enamored with how I believe technology is going to change our lives. Most importantly, I believe that life imitates art. And so I'm going to go on a quick tangent over here. This is my favorite designer of all time. Does anyone know who this is? Nobody? Yes, who? No? Thank you. Yeah, like 15,000 talks, you're the first person to figure that out. So this is Gene Roddenberry. And when people say, well, what did he design? They're like, isn't he the creator of Star Trek? I'm like, no, he's not the creator of Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry is the designer for the Motorola flip phone. He's the designer for the iPad. Gene's the designer for Google Glass. He's the designer for the Taser. He's the designer for the very first Bluetooth earpiece. I was talking to my friend Sky Lee that runs Oculus, and I told her that he invented Oculus way before she did. He is also the designer of Skype. And I'm waiting for him and Elon to get together so that they can create a transporter for me, because that'll be great. The point that I'm making, though, is that all of these things that were invented back in the 1960s are all things that even to this day we try to emulate. And that's why I always believe that life imitates art, and as designers, we should always pay attention to that. So now, this is about me. I got my career working with autistic kids. And what was interesting is that I never thought that I'd be a designer, but when you work with autistic children, you begin to realize quickly how important simplicity and delight is. And that's where I kind of started thinking that maybe I could take what we used to do with autistic kids in group homes and transfer it to the digital world. So from there, I went to Electronic Arts. I worked for EA for quite some time. And I did multi-platform interaction design there, and then we moved over to EA Kids. And what was great about that was I got to bring some of the things that we learned with autistic children to how we actually make children's educational software. After EA, I was at Adobe, and I used to say but I was at Adobe for quite some time, and that's actually where I believe that I honed in on product design, and now I'm with LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's been a ride because not only have we had hypergrowth, I was employee number 360, we're at 10,000. This is also how we started to move from the desktop to mobile, et cetera. So that's me, that's my career. So now you know the what and you know the who. So now let's get into the how. I truly believe that great cultures are created and scaled by consistent, enthusiastic, and crazy reliable people. And what I want to go over today, just so this isn't like your typical design talk, is the 5 things that I think are really important and really kind of drive that home. And if we have time, we can have a conversation about it. So here's the first thing. I get asked a lot to give talks about diversity and inclusion. I wonder why. And here, I'll just do a brief on this. It is super important that you hire a team that is diverse in perspective in order to scale your company. At that point, it's not about gender or ethnicity, it's about perspective. So when I'm talking about perspective myself, I seek tons of different perspectives. Some I agree with, some I don't. You guys can decide if I agree with Hillary's or Donald's. But the part that I think is very important, though, is that by getting as much perspective as humanly possible, I always believe that I have a well-rounded idea of what's going on. So when I'm leading the team or when I'm doing designs, I never think that my idea is the only idea. At LinkedIn specifically, what's interesting is that when people ask us who our audience is, honestly, it's everybody. So if you were to strap a GoPro on top of your head and walk around Times Square, every single person you meet over the age of 18 is probably somebody that we want to work with. So what that means for me is that I have to design a workforce that's reflective of my target audience. And that's really kind of hard to do when it's almost everybody. So I approach all design problems the same. I kick open Photoshop because I'm old school. And then I start to ask myself, OK, if I were to start with something that I've done before, what's some prior art? So for the purposes of this conversation, let's assume that we were designing an employee. Let's assume that we wanted to hire somebody and we were in consultancy. One of the very first things we would do is we would say, well, who are our top consultants in this field, right? Who are the 2 best people? So we have Alec and we have Dan. When you're thinking about perspective to build a great culture, one of the very first things that happen is that people say, well, hey, why don't you tell me about Alex and Dan, right? So we got Dan, and he went to Yale. He grew up in Austin. Oops, almost spilled my water on my MacBook. That wouldn't be good. And he moved to New York, and then right before he went to McKinsey, he worked at PwC. With Alec, very similar. He went to Princeton, he worked at Deloitte, he grew up in Chicago, and then he ended up going to Bain. Now, from these 2 guys, we immediately start to write a job description, because any smart hiring manager says, get me dudes just like that, right? We want those 2 guys because they're crushing it. And then you kind of go on, you say, well, what is it that we know about them? And it's these things. It's Yale, it's Princeton, it's PwC, it's New York. It's great. So this job description lets us hire these guys, and it also allows us to hire all of these dudes. More hipsters from the marina. Just kidding. A couple of you looked at me funny, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that, but I did. But the thing that's interesting about this, though, is this. Even though every single person on this slide is super qualified, you don't have the same perspective. Hello? Sorry. You have the same perspective over and over and over again. One of the reasons why, in my opinion, is because we didn't ask ourselves questions about how these guys are so good. So in Dan's case, he's a hardcore math geek. He's a perfectionist. He's an outdoors guy. He's a massive Batman fan, which is very important to me. With Alex specifically also, he's a musician and he's an artist. He's a cook. He travels the world, and he cannot read enough about products and design. Those are the attributes that make these guys great. It's not what school they went to. It's not who they're affiliated with. It's what they do. So if you were to write a job description with that same information, but bringing out these attributes, you would still have an opportunity to hire these 2 guys, but then you would also get a crew that looks a little bit more like this. Again, all of them super qualified, but very, very, very diverse in their perspective and their background. And that's something that I think is very important for all of us to think about. If you're a hiring manager or not, if you're an influencer, or if you're someone that just interviews, think about hiring based on a different perspective, not hiring clones of yourself over and over and over again. You can create a workforce that kills it, but you can at least understand more. Hello? Hello? It's so weird to have someone playing with my ear while I'm on stage. It's kind of soothing in a way. Don't tell my wife about this. I know, thank you, thank you. That was awkward. I might have lost my train of thought. So again, with that in mind, when you're walking through the streets of New York, You can actually then identify a lot more with a lot more people. And if even you yourself can't, your staff can. So I get asked quite often, how do we accomplish this? And the way that I do it is this. My recruiters are my BFFs. And if any of you are hiring managers, I encourage you to consider this. The people that I sit next to, the very first people I see in the morning, the people that I see before I leave at night is my recruiting team. This board that you see right here is every single open rec we have, every person that we want to hire and interview, what their strengths are and what perspectives they bring. And we take a look at everybody from that lens. So it's not so much, I just have 5 recs open, I need to fill them. It's I've got 5 very key positions open, and I want to get people on this organization that can help contribute to the overall org. So that's the very first important thing for building a great culture. Hire a team that's diverse within, hire a team that's reflective of your target audience, and look for different perspectives. All right, second thing. Great cultures know teamwork's a shared behavior and not a buzzword. I know this guy named Fred Kaufman. He's a great author, and he works with teams all over the world. And he always asks this question at conferences like this. He says, what's the goalie's job? And everybody says, you know, to block the ball, and they feel all good. They're like, that was easy. And he says, no, the goalie's job is to win the game. And it's kind of a Yoda moment. You're like, yeah, the goalie's job is to win the game. Everyone's job on the team is to win the game. And that's why I believe strongly that you have to incentivize collaboration. You can't just tell people to collaborate. You have to make it part of their fundamental job, and you got to make it so that they cannot be successful unless they do it. And on my team specifically, I judge everybody on quality, leadership, leverage, and results. The most important of that is the L for leverage. If in the LinkedIn design team you do not collaborate, I don't care what you created, you're not going to be overly successful with me, because it means that you're not a team player. And I think it's super important that you always think about the fact that you have to be able to pass the ball, you have to be able to hand things off to other people, and you have to work as a collaborative unit, because you're not the smartest person in the room. You have to build super strong structures. And when I was putting this slide together, it originally just said build strong structures, and my wife said that sounded too cliche. So I threw the word super in there so it was a little bit more hip. Super strong structures, it sounded a little bit more millennial. What I'm getting at here is that silos are a whole bunch of organizations that don't talk. And especially as designers, if we can build structures between those silos, we can then build a community. That's the only difference between a silo and a community, is the way that I get there, back and forth. So the more we can train each other and leverage each other to think about building these strong bridges between each other, we can move information between those silos a lot faster, and we can become a community. We can also remove redundancy. Okay, third thing about teamwork. I love it when people promote each other's natural skills. I just think it's awesome. And we have a lot of peer awards with my team that just anybody can give anybody a peer award. Some of the people that I love working with most are people that are constantly promoting each other instead of they're promoting themselves. And my friend's 16-year-old daughter, when I was running through this last night, was so impressed that I had a clip from Step It Up. And she named everybody in the clip and started dancing around with it. I filmed her, I was going to put it in here, and she forbid me for doing it. But if anyone wants to see it after here, I've got it on my phone. It's really good. It proves my point. Turn failure into fuel for success. I gave a talk at CMU about 2 years ago, and I asked them if they knew who this was, and only half the room raised their hands. So does anybody not know who this is? Jesus, are you serious? That is Michael Jordan. That's the greatest basketball player of all time. We got to talk after this. Okay. If you ever read MJ's story or watch any articles about him, he will tell you that he missed shots a year. He did not make as many shots as he took, though he is the greatest basketball player of all time. And one of the things that I was talking to somebody about earlier today is he was horrible from the three-point line. And people used to say to him, you know, why aren't you practicing three-pointers? And he said, because I'm horrible from the three-point line. And it was a really interesting kind of concept where MJ would constantly say, I watched the film after the game if we win or lost to see what it was that I did wrong so I could turn that into a way of winning. And that's something that's always inspired me. You have to take failure and turn it into an opportunity for success, because you're not always going to win. I want to talk about great cultural leaders really fast because I think that it's important for any culture that wants to scale and grow to have a really solid leader. So great cultural leaders, they're effective because they're highly engaged, but they're also approachable. And it also means that they think about their employees at a different level. When I'm looking at all of you right now, I got to think about what it took to get all of you out of bed and whatever form of communication whatever form of transportation it took to get here. So I think that a great leader is somebody that can literally say, I understand that there was traffic on the 101 this morning, or that there was an accident on BART. I understand that the stock market was up or down. I understand that all these things affect you. Probably different than how they affect me, but it's a part of your life. I think that really good cultural leaders cue into the fact that not everybody is like them. So when they're in a room full of people, they don't make assumptions that everyone's day is as good as theirs is. They actually make assumptions that it probably took a lot for everybody to be here at the same time. Something else is that they're extremely humble. And does anyone know who this young man is? No? Okay. Not only are they humble, but they don't assume they're the smartest person in the room. This is Jake Barnett. This film was probably taken when he was 14. He is the smartest person in this room. I guarantee you that. He's a genius. And right now, he is credited with redoing some of Einstein's theories and other scientists all around the world. He's also autistic. He has a very hard time tying his shoes. But he's the smartest person in the room. He's also the most humble individual you'll ever meet. And I think that there's something about great cultural leaders that no matter how smart they are, how smart they believe they are, no matter how much power they have, they always stay humble. I think it's very important. They're change agents, and this got cut off. It's my fault because of the thing, but this is the year down here. It starts with 1982. I'm a music fan. I used to, never mind. Anyhow, I think it's important for cultural leaders to understand that they have to change with the times and to embrace that as much as humanly possible and don't try to fight it. And I've got Madonna up here because no matter what happens, every time she goes on tour, I end up going and my wife ends up dancing and I end up remembering that I've been dancing to her for, I won't say how many years because that'll age me. But I do think that great leaders can adapt effortlessly like she does. And that's something that I think that all of us can do if we're in a management position or not. They are genuinely empathetic, and of all the video clips that I'm going to show that I'm actually not going to speak over, it's the elevator scene that's coming up right now, because I think it's very important. So I'm going to let this ride for a second. This kind of comes back to the slide that I was talking about earlier about what it takes to actually get to work. We have 3 people in one elevator. One guy's wife recently had a stroke. He's trying to figure out how he can take care of her. The woman in the middle is recently divorced. The young man at the very end found out that he's going to be a father. 3 totally different people in the same line of business, in the same room. Their worlds are completely different. Great cultural leaders cue into that. And if they're having a meeting or if they're talking to people, they realize that somebody may seem a little bit off and they don't assume that they're not paying attention, but they ask them why. I think it's important. All right, and they're inclusive. And they always make sure that they ask the quiet ones to contribute. I feel very confident about my hiring practices. So if I'm in a room and if we're having a brainstorm and if somebody isn't participating, I assume there's a reason why. And I ask them to participate. And I get asked a lot, do you have to be an extrovert to actually do well in this industry? And I say, no, you just have to be effective to do well in this industry. So I think that a really good leader is someone that pulls their introverts out. They don't try to make them extroverts. Let people be who they are. But you at least make sure that you give your introverts the pen and you have them go to the whiteboard to articulate their point, because in a lot of cases, they probably have a very, very, very good one. Last thing on great cultural leaders, they're non-hierarchical, and they don't rule by hierarchy and fear. But they actually try to make sure that something like what's on this screen right now can never happen. If I'm in a meeting and if everybody there is nodding and smiling, I just know I've got the wrong group of people in that room, because not everything that I say is right, and I'm not really that funny. So if everyone's just going along with everything that I'm saying, those are yes people. I don't want yes people. I don't want a military. I want people that are individual thinkers and contributors. I think that whenever you're looking at any organization, if you're the manager of that organization or if you're in it, take a look at that leader and identify, is that person looking for folks that challenge ideas and grow it, or is that person looking for a whole bunch of mindless soldiers? All right, number 4. I think we're gonna have plenty of time for Q&A. Amazing people create amazing cultures which build amazing products. And I think that this is really important. I get asked a lot, people will have sick ink, and I wish I had tattoos, but I don't, and piercings, mohawk, whatever, and they'll say to me, I guess I have to put on a suit in order to get a job. And especially working at LinkedIn, it's interesting because we hear this a lot from people about their LinkedIn profiles. And I always tell people that an effective organization hires unique personalities, because unique personalities have unique ideas. I encourage everybody to think about that, and think about the fact that that person that you're interviewing next week who's nothing like you might be the best person for the organization. Because again, to the very top of this conversation, the perspective that they bring is different. And the fact that they're not like you means that they're going to come up with something that's very, very, very different. That might actually be the most effective answer to any question that you guys have. And I love this clip. I watch this crap over and over again. No, I'm serious. I try to mimic it, but it's just never come out right. And you don't want to see that. When you're looking for great people and you're hiring great folks, you also want to hire trendsetters. These are people that define the era. And back to great cultural leaders that can adapt, that adaptation is normally to what their employees are coming up with. I think it's super important that if you're brainstorming with somebody, see if they're talking about trends. Are they talking about yesterday's trends, today's trends, or are they talking about the types of trends that they can create tomorrow? I think it's very, very, very important. It's also something that I think that a lot of people don't fall into because they normally just want to get on board because they're afraid to take risks. And I think that that's not good at all. I love people that go big. I mean really big. I attend the X Games a lot because I watch these guys and say, God, I wish I could do that, and holy hell, I'd break every bone in my body. But I think that when you're talking about great people, you're talking about folks that go huge. I think that what's important is if you build the appropriate culture, the entire team, the whole team, takes a lot of care, and they're very happy when that person sticks it. And if the person doesn't stick it, it's okay, because the entire team then gets behind them and rallies around them and says, it's okay, next time we'll get it done. What I love about this though is that for people to want to take a risk this big, that's the kind of person that I want to hire immediately. So I think it's very, very, very simple to always play it safe and be a naysayer. But if you don't go big, then you're never going to have great success. Last thing on this, adaptation equals flexibility and speed. I need folks who can adapt. And I think that when you're talking about hiring a great staff or working with great people, I don't know how many people ask questions about how they adapt. I think in a lot of cases, people just kind of go for someone that goes with the status quo, right, over and over and over again. But we need adaptability. You need flexibility. I've had a lot of people say, LinkedIn's so big now. I mean, it was 360 people when I started. It's 10,000 people now. We're a big company now. And we're only a big company if we lose the ability to adapt quickly. Then we're big. You can have a 15-person organization that never changes. They're a big company. You can have a 50,000-person company like Apple that changes constantly. No one complains about that. So the very last thing about folks. People that stay kids at heart are awesome. I have been quoted in having interviews where I was talking to people about, why did the X-Wing fighter need wings if it was a spaceship? And I hired every single one of those people because the fact that they were a kid at heart and that we could have conversations about that and we could have that kind of fun, those are the kinds of people that I wanted to work with every single day. But more importantly, the way that they problem solved was very similar to the way that how a child problem solves. Ask an 8-year-old to figure something out. And what you'll get is like this huge blossom of ideas. It doesn't work at all. I mean, it's horrible, like the worst idea you've ever heard. But it's just so fun. And the fact that they come at it from that perspective is something that you just really kind of enjoy going through. And I think that it's important. All right, last thing. Great cultures are reflections of shared company values. So this is my boss, Jeff. He's the CEO of LinkedIn. And he's probably one of the greatest speakers I've ever seen. If Jeff were talking in the building next door, I'd have all of you get up and walk next door because he's really good. I mean, it's just very insightful. About a year ago, Jeff scratched something on a napkin. He said, the 3 things that I admire most about a person are the following. And then somebody took a picture of it and they did a LinkedIn blog post. It was one of the biggest posts ever. So I'm going to go over it with you because I think that it's really important because these have become the whole company's values. The first one is dream big, and I love that I got to follow somebody from Pixar because I'm like, wait, he didn't show the balloon scene. I'm like, good, he didn't steal my thunder. Dream big. When Jeff talks about dreaming big, he's not kidding. He literally says, dream the biggest dream humanly possible, pitch it, and then try to execute against it. Have fun. This is when I normally tell if people are paying attention to my presentation because people start getting green in the face. Having fun can be different to everybody. I like things that take me completely out of control. So I'm a roller coaster fanatic. And when Jeff is talking about having fun, he's saying that work shouldn't be a drag. Work should be as fun as humanly possible. I'm watching some heads do this, so yeah, you guys are paying attention. That's good. Most importantly, what happens is that even if you fail, you had a lot of fun trying it, and then that makes it so that you're not angry with the person next to you because you guys really enjoyed the ride. Okay, I'm going to stop here. It's okay. I started seeing some like greenness. Okay, the very last thing is get shit done. When I put the slide together, I originally did say get shit done. My 11-year-old boy saw that and said, Dad, language. I went, okay. I'll put the little asterisk there, the whole bit. The only modification that I'm going to say about getting shit done, though, is get shit done with quality. That's the most important part, okay? Because just getting it done without quality, who cares? So what? You got it done. You got to get your bonus. I did that, but you did it with poor quality. Getting stuff done with quality is one of the most important things you can possibly do. So those are his 3 things. Dream big, have fun, get shit done. And literally, that is the fundamental values of what we're doing right now at LinkedIn. So I'm pretty old school. So that's all, folks. And I think we have some time for Q&A.